Many times in this channel, I've tried to avoid making this into an anti-feminist channel, but it's come to the point where I have to be honest. Feminists support domestic violence against men. And the story that I saw this morning about Amber Heard proves this. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here's the article. It's from NBC, so it's not some fringe source. I've put the link in the description below. Look at the headline. National feminist organizations break their silence on Amber Heard in an open letter of support. Now, this is important, so please pay attention. If you're a feminist and the title of this video bothers you, if you think, I don't support domestic violence against men, please understand what this article is about. National feminist organizations. And this is what I've been saying on this channel about anti-feminism and why MRAs are anti-feminist. I know that the average person walking on the street who calls themselves a feminist is not a bad person, but you have to pay attention to what these political organizations are actually doing, because these organizations are the ones who are lobbying Congress and Parliament, etc., and getting sexist laws passed and pushing narratives that hurt men and boys. Look at the names of the feminist organizations in this article. These are the major feminist groups. Take a look. So here's the article, and pay attention to the names listed. Pay attention to who's saying this. More than 130 people, including Gloria Steinem, and organizations in the field of women's rights advocacy and domestic violence and sexual assault awareness, have signed an open letter to support Amber Heard, who lost a defamation suit this year brought by her ex-husband Johnny Depp for an op-ed in which she said she was a public figure representing domestic abuse. The letter, which was exclusively shared with NBC News ahead of its public release Wednesday, was signed by groups like the National Organization for Women, the National Women's Law Center, Equality Now, and the Women's March Foundation. It was written by a group of people who identify as domestic violence survivors and supporters of her. Think about who those groups are. That's very scary. Those are the major feminist groups in the United States, the biggest feminist groups in the United States. The National Organization for Women now is probably the biggest feminist group in the United States. And the Women's March organization, this is the organization that marched thousands of people down the streets of American cities, and they're supporting domestic abusers. Think about that for a second. What would they do if they had more power? What would they do if they had more influence? What kind of laws would they support? If they could influence Congress into passing laws on domestic violence, what would that reality be like for male victims? Because they are supporting domestic violence against men. They are supporting a domestic abuser. They are supporting Amber Heard, who is an abuser, and they're doing so knowingly. They're not wrong. They're lying on purpose. It's intentional. And it's blatant. So you can read the rest of the article. I put it in the description below. Basically, it just goes on to say that Amber Heard is a victim and she shouldn't be silenced by lawsuits, and it's unfair that lawsuits are being used to silence and suppress victims. But Amber Heard is not a victim. Amber Heard is an abuser, and these feminist organizations are defending her. So, politically speaking, I am anti-feminist. And when I say that I'm politically anti-feminist, that doesn't mean that I'm against women's rights. And if you call yourself a feminist, that doesn't mean that I'm your enemy. But the feminist movement, the feminist organizations are not forces of good. They're forces of discrimination, and they're forces of violence, because they're supporting domestic violence by supporting domestic abusers. And this is something that we have to be honest about. Look at what feminist organizations are actually doing. When men's rights activists say that we're against feminism, it's not because we secretly hate women and we're secretly misogynistic and we're just looking for an excuse to hate women. It's because the things that they actually say and actually do. It's very scary because these groups are very powerful. The Women's March organized thousands of people to march through the streets. They had Donna Hilton, a convicted murderer, as one of their speakers. You've got to pay attention to what's going on. And I'm almost glad this is happening. I'm almost relieved that this is happening, because it's like they're finally getting confident and arrogant enough to show their true colors, to show people who they really are. And I'm going on Twitter and I'm looking at their accounts of these organizations and seeing the comments they're getting, and the vast majority of people are criticizing them, which is great because people are beginning to realize, they're beginning to see what these groups are really about. So please understand, when MRAs say that we're anti-feminist, it's not because we hate women. It's because of the things that these feminist groups are saying and doing. And right now, they're supporting a domestic abuser. They're supporting someone who put someone in the hospital. It's very serious. These are very big organizations with a lot of followers. MRAs don't hate women. We don't do this because we're misogynistic. We do this because we care about equality for everybody. And that includes male victims of domestic violence as well. That includes baby boys who have their genitals mutilated as well. That includes homeless men who are freezing on the streets. That's all that we are. We care about equality, and we care about issues that affect men and boys. So I think it's time for me to identify myself as anti-feminist, which is something that I haven't wanted to do on this channel in the past. I don't want the men's rights movement to be about anti-feminism, but at this point, we've crossed the line where I don't think in good conscience I can not call myself an anti-feminist. I think it's important that we call ourselves anti-feminists in the name of equality. And it is completely the fault of these feminist organizations for supporting domestic abusers. And believe me, it's only the tip of the iceberg. So I'm sorry that this video might be a little bit strong and might be a little bit negative. I've thought about how if you scroll through my videos, if you browse my channel, this is a very negative channel. You know, I had this image in my head that I'm this moderate, rational kind of voice of reason, but then when I scroll through my channels, I realize, wow, you know, I have all these very negative titles, but this is a very negative topic. The men's rights movement is not a happy movement because it's not happy news. It's not good news. It's very grim news. It's very scary news. But it's the truth. And it's a truth that needs to be said. So, thank you for watching. I put the article in the description below. I did not use an archive because I think NBC, they're not perfect, but I think they're more or less fair and balanced, and they're not too biased. So, anyway, Blue Orange 22, thanks for watching.